Soul Tribe. I'm KamalaDevi, and I'm here with Z today. And I'm really excited to just spontaneously have a conversation with a really dear friend. So for those of you who don't, know Z, do you want to just say anything, a little introduction about who you are, beyond obviously being my friend?
Which is a really fun part. Well, I think we met 14 years ago. And have kindred intentions to bring a lot of love and empowerment and serve people. And I'm the founder of Embody More Love, which is just what it sounds like. And so I'll leave it there for now, but just grateful for our friendship. Yeah.
I love that you presence the history, because we've been doing this this dance for a long time in the areas of sacred sexuality, poly, kinky, queer. Like there's a whole bunch of intersecting both identities and communities that we share. And so in our intimate relationship, I would normally call you and update you on, hey, I just got back from the transgender health clinic, because I happen to be in this deep exploration of my gender journey, and I'd update you. But I thought, why not share that with the world today and just see what inspired in you?
Great. I love it. Thank you.
Many of you may or may not have known that I happen to be taking testosterone, and it's now been almost 2 years, and it's more like a medicine journey for me than a gender transition. And I say that because I have no current intention of transitioning my presentation, which obviously is pretty femme, but I have a strong identity that is not like a sense of self, that is not well, it's both feminine and masculine. It's not that it's not either. It's definitely both strongly. And more than the identity is the hermaphroditic soul, the sense of who I am beyond this body is really an alchemical mix of both. And so that's something I think that we share, Z, is being doing it's a very much a spiritual journey, and then also being and I think you're probably more gender non-conforming, but I don't want to, without comparing myself to you, I'd love to hear how you identify.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I do still like wearing lacy bras, but I love that you're offering this unlayering of presentation from internal experience of self. I feel like that's so important to unlayer. I identify as gender transcendent. And that means for me, like when I get back to the root of the word trans means a cross in Latin, right? And so for me, I'm like a shapeshifter. And also it's more than just two, right? Like I resonate with what you were speaking to. And also that's still in the language of two in a way. Yeah. And so for me, sometimes my gender is dog. I know that doesn't make sense, but like actually a very specific Black Pomeranian named Patience. Okay. So like that is one expression of my gender energy, right? When I look out at different species and different embodiments, I get really excited that my soul could express itself in so many different forms. And feminine and masculine are like two possibilities. So yeah, hence for me, gender transcendent just sounds really fun and like a magician. And also when I was younger and I heard about people's gender journeys, I often heard about it in the context of people feeling like they were in the wrong body. And I think something that's really unique and different about how we've been in this conversation is it's not necessarily about model A is wrong, therefore go to model B. That may be someone's experience. And I'm like, oh, cool. Okay, I'm gonna do little model A, little model B, little model F, like that. There's play in it. That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah. And I want to, two things that brings up for me. And one's a yes to like beyond the binary. When I first, like, you're the person in my life who first introduced me to they, them pronouns, like the person I was closest to, that I was like, oh, I've got to wrap my tongue around this. Like when you first, started using that. And then there was a moment in my journey, many years, like ago, like between, where I said, oh, she didn't encompass who I am. And ironically, it wasn't because of how, because of my inner masculine, it was because I am multiple. Like there's so much more to me than just her and she. And so they, them is like, whoa, that's way more, how I experience myself. And that's not the case for a lot of people who use they, them. It's not about necessarily. So I don't want to speak for they, them in general, but I do want to say that when I changed my pronouns, you were an inspiration. And part of that was me feeling no longer singular. And so that's one piece. And then, this other piece about like, it being a, I also wanted to say, I don't just have like one inner masculine. I also have guides, that come through. And as a channel, there's often like a sense of a spirit husband, and that lives inside of me. And so that's really, it's really delicate to talk about, because it's kind of like trying to put words on the ineffable. But it's like there's a alter ego that's masculine, that's personality, but there's also a soul husband that's way beyond like any conception I have of self, but who I'm devoted to helping express in this body.
Yeah. Thank you. I really resonate with multiplicity. I've had many conversations with my parents over the years, right? Like I learned so much, not just from all the folks who immediately embrace and celebrate me, but also the folks who are like, I learned a lot from those too, right? And since I remember there was a photo, a time lapse photo of me dancing where it looked like there were 6 of me, because it was like me in 6 different moments, right? And I remember my mom asking, what do you mean them? That sounds like more than one person, right? And then I saw this photo and I said, Mom, look, they're all me, right? But they're all like these different moments, different angles. And something about that image and the sense of it is a spiritual experience that we can experience ourselves beyond this exact moment, this exact body, this exact expression. That is just one moment. And yeah, that I relate to that. And then when I started connecting with my friends who are multiples, we had a fascinating conversation. Multiples in that they have multiple personalities. And, there's some relation there, and that's I'm not an expert in it, but it opened up this amazing door of like, oh, what is it? The distinction that came forth from that conversation was, what is it to intend a state or a gender expression versus to find yourself in it almost involuntarily, and the different nature of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. I remember now the other thing you inspired is this sense of something's wrong with this. So I like how transition doesn't have to be running away from what you don't want. It can be running towards just more, right? Being more of yourself. And I want to say that, and this is a bit of my edge, is that the place in my body where I have dysphoria is in menstruation. Like every month, despite how many goddess ceremonies I do or how much I might worship, blood in another, like in a lesbian lover, or like I'm attracted to it in other bodies, but it always feels in my body like hey, something's wrong, something's off. And so I started taking testosterone to experience amenorrhea, to pause my cycles. And when I went to the doctor, he checked, he now knows me, we have a relationship, and he checked in and he's like, hey, you're still bleeding. Like, how are you about that? Should we up your dosage? And we did. Like we said, okay, let's start playing with that. But he's also sensitive to the fact that I'm, like from his perspective, non-binary, which is like, okay, we don't want to do so much testosterone that your body goes into this other puberty and you start feeling, dysphoric about being too masculine. So there's like this delicate dance as a non-binary person doing testosterone. And some of the things, like the other results are like, ironically, I'm working out more, so I've got more muscle mass, but I'm also eating more because testosterone increases the appetite, and where the fat grows on my body is like my boobs and my ass. So I'm actually becoming more more like curvy and womanly because I have a bigger appetite. And there's just this irony about how my body is dramatically changing, but in unexpected ways you'd want if you're wanting to transition. So I'm just noticing those changes and doing that dance. I'm getting some feedback on your internet. The sound is freaking out, but you're back. So.
Okay. Thanks for that. I also had a glitch on my end too, and now you're back. So I'm hoping that studies out. Speaking of unexpected responses. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It is such a vulnerable thing to not know how our bodies are going to respond. And also, if people are listening and don't know the word dysphoria, it's in my experience, and you might have your own words for this too. It's like a disconnect from our physical body and our sense of sensation, or what we can propriocept or feel on the inside. So yeah, I remember when I first had dysphoria with my breasts years ago. I don't have that now, but it was humbling because I had thought, before it had happened to me, I had thought, oh, people just need to do more yoga and have more body awareness, do more meditation. Like I didn't understand because I'm like an embodiment obsessed person, right? And then I was like, wait, what happened? Something just happened where this part of me went offline. And if people touched it or talked about it, it actually pulled me out of myself. And I just had no understanding for that before it happened. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything you want to add about your experience with dysphoria. And
I do still have that. Like if someone, okay, so there's two things I'm tracking. One is I love my yoni. I love my yoni, and I love my yoni loves being, touched in the right ways. But if someone is not comfortable with my etheric cock, like if someone is touching my yoni and not aware that I also have an etheric cock, like there's times when I'm like, they're pushing on my balls, or like I feel like they're not aware of how I hold more than just a yoni. Like I, have this transcendent sense of my masculine's also there. And then it's a partial experience that feels very uncomfortable. Like I don't want to be touched by someone who only wants to touch half of me. And and therefore, it's like really powerful for me to have lovers who are aware of energetics and are able to move with and feel all of me, even if the parts that aren't in the visible world. And the second piece I want to track is just like, this body happens to be 5'6", and my sense of self is something like 6'3" or 2, 2 or 3. It's like so there'll be times when I'll like duck, I'll duck for no reason, or I'll be and I'll be around like tall people and always think I'm bigger than them. And it's the funniest thing, because I really genuinely don't have a sense that I end, like here, which I imagine you also have, because your height and what a big.
Let's not tell anyone, because on the screen I look lightly. Yeah, no. Yeah. Well, that's been a funny thing about Zoom world the last 2 years, is that body dimensions and weight are kind of in the background of a lot of Zoom interactions. It's been fascinating for me as a dancer. I'm like, oh my God, I can lift everybody because you weigh 3 pounds. Like, like if I'm dancing with people on Zoom, right? Yeah. So I'm 4'9". If you've never met me. Yeah. So many things I could say about that, but I remember I grew up deeply admiring Baryshnikov, and then at one point got a chance to actually perform in the same performance. And when I met him, I'm like, oh my God, you're my size. Like, wait, what? Like this, he's a slightly bigger, but like enough for me to be like double take, like what? Because if you're always soloing on stage, you don't know. But when you're next to other people, then it shows, right? So, I joke like, oh, don't tell other people my size, but yeah, our sense of presence is so different. And just like there are folks who are physically occupying a lot of space and yet energetically are much smaller inside themselves. And I think that's an interesting thing to play with, how we take up space and how our energetic genitalia takes up space, right? Like, can my yoni actually become half the size of my body, right? Or like, can my cock or my mustache, or like that we can put attention and sensation tracking into these parts of our bodies and then invite other people to join us in that experience. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
One of the things I also really like doing, just to kind of like play with people's sense of possibility, when I'm leading gender workshops and we're exploring different energetic anatomy, one, to not always just make it about genitals, right? Because gender is so much bigger than just our sexual arousal or genital response. But two, to get like into your alien or your cartoon or your like, a polka dotted lizard, like, that to invite, like, how does that being have, how is its anatomy? How does it move? What is the tone of its voice and vibration? Like that there's something that can, when we play that way, it can open up new expression. And we can, when we return back to a more home sense or familiar sense of self, we can feel it more clearly, the way that we carry ourselves. And that also is very interesting to me.
Yeah. And this shape shifting goes way beyond gender into, these archetype bodies, the mythic body, the the elemental body. Like there's so much to play with there. So I love that we're expanding this conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm really enjoying it, but I want to I want to wrap up and and just thank you for spontaneously jumping on with me, because I love our conversations. They get so like we commuse each other, and I do feel like I want to share that with the world sometimes. So thanks for
thank you. And thanks for being so vulnerable around conversations that don't usually happen in this way. So thank you for that too.
Yeah, I want to just say my kind of bottom line, what I'm taking away from this conversation is how in the mystery I am. Like, I don't know, I'm not trying to transition to something. I'm just in the, like, all right, I'm listening and I'm adjusting, and it's an evolution, and I'm surrendered to where that takes me. So
Yeah. And that because we're speaking at this moment in time, what's really present as a closing thought is, there's an energy right now in our government, in our world, that's so much about trying to control. And it is radical to surrender to mystery. That this energy of permission and discovery, and maybe we don't know everything about gender, is a radical contrast to this sense of we know it and we're going to control it and it's going to be this way. So that is also important medicine in the spirit of this conversation.
yeah, thank you. Love you.
I love you